Ahoy there, goobers. Welcome to Create and Destroy. I'm your host, Dan Donnarumma, and this is episode 35. Man alive. Shit, am I excited about today's episode. Have a nice life. See ya worry. Goddamn, let's talk about it. So as I mentioned in the episode where I had Jonathan Tuitt from the Flenser on the podcast, I've been able to listen to Sea of Worry. And guys, I'm going to tell you that album is fucking fantastic. Such a great album. The title track of the album, which is called Sea of Worry, is so goddamn good. And it's one of, if not my favorite songs of the entire year. The song is stellar. So goddamn good. And when I saw them perform that song during the Flenser showcase back in March, oh, it was so goddamn awesome live. So for today's episode, I was able to get Dan Barrett to come back onto the podcast and his counterpart, Tim Macuga. We talk about the album and we talk about the fact that there is, to some degree, this sort of dichotomy with the album. You've got Sea of Worry on there, Science Beat, Trespassers W, that have a more kind of punk, post-punk kind of a vibe to them. And then some of the later tracks have a more grueling and dark feel to them. And I love that the album does that. I love that in one instance, I'm listening to Sea of Worry and I feel like I want to fucking cut a rug. And then by the time Destinos comes on, I feel like I want to just fucking sit in my chair and sulk and contemplate life and humanity. Like, it's just such a very unique listening experience. And that's one of the things that I really love about the album, is the fact that it's got these moments that are fucking fast paced and really make you want to move, and then it's got these moments that are grueling. So I talked about that with Tim and Dan. We also talked a little bit about the fact that Tim and his wife, they have a farm in Connecticut, and that was something I really wanted to talk to Tim about. My wife's aunt and uncle, they have a farm in central New York, and it's fucking awesome. So hearing some of Tim's stories and hearing him talk about his farm is really cool. We also talked about memes and meme culture, and I'm going to go on record and saying I am pro meme, baby. I love memes. They're awesome. So we talked about that and how Dan and Tim, feel about that sort of stuff. We also talk about the fact that, this album, Sea of Worry, isn't so much of the doom and gloom and melancholy and complete fucking sadness that maybe you feel in Death Consciousness or with the Unnatural World. There's still anxieties and worry and trepidations and some sadness baked into these songs, but it's two dudes now that are older, that are at different stages in their life, and that Sea of Worry, like their previous albums like Death Consciousness and The Unnatural World, are timestamps of this point in time of their lives, which I thought was really cool. We recorded this interview a little bit differently in how I usually will have interviews recorded. So Tim and Dan, we talked over Skype, and they actually recorded their end of the audio right from Skype. So because of that, I couldn't interrupt them while they were speaking. Otherwise, the audio would have been completely fucked up. But that made me enjoy my conversation with them almost more, because hearing both of them banter with each other and talk about things was really cool. And at times they had me cracking up. Made things very easy for me. So yeah, this was a really fun interview, one that I really, really enjoyed. So let's get right into it, guys. Here's my conversation with Dan Barrett and Tim Macuga of Have a Nice Life. So Dan and Tim, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it, guys. I'm super excited to talk about the band and the new album. But before we get into that, Tim, I wanted to talk to you about the fact that you have a farm, which I think is awesome.
That was a really good segue.
Getting down to brass tacks.
So how long have you had a farm for?
Well, my wife and I moved into the house. What, you helped us move in? Was that 5 years ago now? 6?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember. So a pretty rural area, up on the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border. It has a decrepit barn. It wasn't being used for farm type activities at the time of purchase, but over the past 5 or 6 years, I've been building it up with my wife in a sim farm-like way. It's dotted with outbuildings. We have about 50 beating hearts on it right now, and we grow some of our own vegetables too. But yeah,
That's really awesome, man.
It's a legit operation.
yeah, we just sold 6 turkeys for pretty decent cash. So
What made you want to have a farm?
it's something, at least animal raising is something my wife and I always had an interest in. I mean, we were apartment dwellers and city dwellers, for 5 or 6 years. And then when it came time to say, well, we're going to go give our lives to a bank and get a mortgage, we said we should find some place with a decent chunk of land and start experimenting. And I don't know, it just started with a smaller flock of chickens and some raised beds, but chickens turned into chickens and ducks, which turned into chickens, ducks, and goats, which turned into chickens, ducks, goats, and breeding rabbits. We got 2 pigs on the farm now and 7 sheep too. So
That's amazing, man. My wife's aunt and uncle have a farm, and they have similar kinds of animals as you. I don't know how many animals they have, but it's amazing whenever I get to go there. So I'm assuming, like my wife's aunt and uncle, it's a shit ton of work to maintain that farm, right?
it is. It's a constant. I mean, Dan has actual human children. We don't have actual human children ourselves, but it is. It's a bale of chores in the morning before I go to school and my wife gets on the train. It's a bale of chores in the evening. It's the dirty work of, we're not veterinarians, but doing the veterinarian care in as much as you can as an amateur with it. It's we participate in the cycle of violence of eating meat. So, the rewards and unpleasantries of doing that too. So it's it's another job, and just outside of everything, but certainly when I'm not teaching in the summers, it's officially hit the point where it's another job. And we are, I don't know, we haven't been keeping a ledger too carefully in terms of breaking even or losing the house on it or things like that, but we're trying to financially self-sustain it at this point with wheeling and dealing and selling and stuff like that.
I've always been curious what you think you would be doing if you weren't doing that. Like, how would you fill your hours?
Well, I mean, my wife asked this question, I think. She's like, well, what would you do if I was dead? Would you still be doing this?
I specifically didn't specify that your wife is dead.
It's a team activity. I can't imagine not doing that at this point.
What would you do if you didn't have a farm, you were a widower?
If I would be doing half as much of that, or I would be doing some version of, rural outdoor type living, but it might not be as ambitious as what can be accomplished with 2. And my wife also being a bit better at planning and surveying the property and being able to I cut the lumber and we build a lot of outbuildings, but I don't know if I would have the wherewithal or patience to really sit down with the deed and the maps and plan things out to satisfy town setback requirements. I don't know. It's a pretty intricate operation for what isn't a huge chunk of land. It's 3 acres, and really 2 of it are still wooded and off limits. But it's a dance to fit everything on the piece of property that's there. So how would I be filling my hours alone? Like some version of that. It's just not.
You'd just be like,
or is that a non-answer? Can I not?
No, I don't know. I mean, you can answer that. It would just be something like it, but not that.
I'd just be reading more books, or I don't.
Did you say that? Do you slaughter animals as well? Is that what you said? God damn, man. So like, what type of stuff will you slaughter?
So the poultry, I do all that. We just sold 6 turkeys, but actually tomorrow or Sunday, but we got 2 left, the Thanksgiving turkey and then one that we're selling to a buddy of mine. ducks and chickens, I've done those. The rabbits, I can take care of those pretty quickly and dress them pretty fast now. But the big stuff, we did bring a goat that we thought it was supposed to be like a pygmy size or a dwarf size, but it turned out to be humongous and out eating everyone else. So that would have required more equipment than I have, but also a wherewithal. I don't know, a complicated slaughter like that I haven't gotten into. I'd have to go to the slaughterhouse we'll bring the bigger animals to like workshop that kind of thing, because I wouldn't want to screw up something that complicated. Like with, I had a learning curve with chickens and ducks and rabbits and turkeys, but it's still really quick. If you're kind of fucking it up, you can still end it real fast. So it's not long and protracted. But my pigs, or, if we're, doing a sheep for mutton, or just lamb or something like that, that requires hooks and chains and pulleys and just some other stuff that I need to become a bit more educated on before I commit to it. So yeah, it's the small stuff for now.
Shit, man. So the first time you slaughtered an animal, were you like, what the fuck? This is insane? Or were you like, I'm ready to do this?
I was ready. I can flip the switch. I don't know. I've told myself, my wife, that if I can't flip the switch, or I'm doing it and then it's, there is something wrong, then I don't know, I got to do the soul searching, or that's it. It's like I was talking to Joe Streeter. Some people walk into a church and then they feel the Holy Spirit, or I don't know, they feel this thing and it's directing them. Or, I can walk into a church and, it's like I smell old perfume, and I'm not filled with the anything. So I don't know, kind of applying that to the idea of, how I view the animals and the internal feeling. I don't know if the switch is a coldness or whatever, but they become critters. The one real what the fuck am I doing, or what was the first duck my wife and I ever did, because what was the situation? It was on Valentine's Day during a snowstorm indoors. In the tub, for that matter. It wasn't ideal. We have a post out in the backyard, but for whatever reason, this one had to go in the middle of the winter, and it was too snowy and icy out to go out to do it at the post. So it was pretty horrific trying to slaughter a duck in the tub.
Oh my God.
You can't get the right leverage. I don't know, that the post and the cone we have, it's going to placate the animal and keep them from flapping everywhere, but trying to hold it down in the tub, it was splatterhouse, even though it was still pretty quick, but just the gore that came from it. So, but I don't know, that was still more like, what the fuck, this is as messy as I could ever imagine it, not like, oh my God, what have I done? I have violated the trust of the thing I raised.
I have to tell you that when I was preparing these questions, at no point did I think we're going to be talking about Tim slaughtering a duck in his bathtub.
I didn't imagine I'd have to dredge that one up either, but I think I do bring it up. It is the go-to when people ask if it could be traumatic. I mean, that would be the one, because it wasn't the most ideal. I know better at this point, even though that was kind of an emergency, or we just had to get it done there at that time. Yeah, that I've gotten pretty good at it, at least. I just took some self-confidence in that. I don't know.
Yeah, you should.
That's hard for me to do sometimes, but
I think you totally should.
It's a hard skill to have.
Yeah, but I'm quick at it now. So when you're quick, it's easier to make peace with it quicker.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Does it make you think differently about death metal album covers?
No, they still look fucking cool when they're drawn right. Yeah, it's, it doesn't make, I thought you were gonna zag, or I thought you were gonna ask, does it make you think differently about the food that you eat? And that's yes and yes. It's
So I stopped eating meat about a year ago, and I feel like I've talked about this with my wife, that if I were to go back to eating meat, I'd want to like hunt and try to hunt for my own meat and slaughter my own meat, because I feel like that's a responsible way to do it. And I know not everyone could do that, though. I
recommend the experience to everyone, just to, that's a weird thing to recommend to everyone, slaughter, but it's true. I stand by it. That
if you're gonna outsource it, you should know what's involved in it.
Yeah, correct. Even if it's something that you would never do again, but just to, not even own it in a tough guy way, but just to understand, in the best possible circumstances, and as much as I can believe that my menagerie is the best possible circumstances for an animal to live in small numbers in relatively open quarters and not, die a horrible thing in a box in a factory.
Absolutely, man. So let's segue into Have a Nice Life, guys. You guys had a very active year, which I'm sure was great and at times maybe a little bit crazy for you guys. You performed at the Flenser Showcase in New York City. You guys toured. You played Psycho Las Vegas, which was pretty awesome. So has this been one of, if not the most active years for Have a Nice Life?
I just talked about killing a duck in a tub for...
All right, I'll take this one then. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think... there were a couple of years in the past where we'd played a handful of shows, maybe but this was the first time we'd really strung a number of shows together in a row. And certainly the first time we'd traveled so much, we played Roadburn, we played on the West Coast, we played in Canada. Like you said, we played Las Vegas. So there's a lot of, for us, that's the farthest out we've ever been. So yeah, and then recording and practicing for sure I think is probably the most compressed amount of time we'd ever spend working on the band before.
Yeah, compressed amount of time. Though I would say I'm here at Dan's office in West Hartford. You've had this office or you've had that house for over a year. This is my first time being down here to see my friend and artistic partner, and spoke at his wedding and all these things that as far as that dominating our time, but actually being the least amount of sitting around eating burritos and endlessly tweaking, the amount of EVP ghost noises in a recording that we used to put, I don't know if they would be equal hours in a given year into that sort of thing as the amount of hours we've put into live band preparation and then the actual touring. But it's, when you said compressed time, it's that's what it is, rather than actual seeing each other and just hanging out type time, which I don't know is a part of the Have a Nice Life identity. 2 friends, 1 keyboard, a life to live.
So was this propelled primarily by the upcoming album, or did you guys decide that you wanted to play a bunch of shows just to kind of play?
I think we got invited to play Roadburn, and we were so we had played 2 years prior. We had played in Brooklyn.
In Strange Day Festival. That was the one that ultimately, hey, you want to go play with Chameleons in Olympia, Washington? We're like, all right, let's get the wagon together. That's, the offer was, the travel plans were there to go do that. So, that's like the prologue, I guess. Yeah. So we had a live set up for that. That was like a couple years ago. Then we got invited to play Roadburn, and we were like, well, okay, if we're putting together, so when we got invited to play Roadburn, it was to play, like a normal set and then play Death Consciousness front to back. So we were like, well, if we're going to put in all the time to learn how to play these songs and get a live set up and, get a lineup together, we should do more than just this one-off. Play the hits,
So we, that was when we were like, well, we played the East Coast, at least a little bit, we'll try to get out to the West Coast, and sort of just strung those shows together from there. And then that ended up affecting the album. Tim and I had originally written and sort of composed traditionally, just like the two of us working, sort of on a computer or whatever. And then we had sort of started playing some of those songs live and, figured out how to arrange it live. And we're like, well, a big part of what we do is like the albums are very much time capsules. And we're like, this is a big part of the band at this point is this live lineup. So
we need to reflect that part of our identity at this point, rather than, we can't pretend we're dudes in our early 20s with nothing better to do than shut ourselves in. But, we're out there doing stuff and, and also having the input of Joe and Mike and Rich and embellishing those songs has been real cool. So
yeah, we just liked the live version of those songs. So, we wanted to make sure that those got recorded and sort of put on a record and sort of preserved that way. So, it was sort of like the other way around. Rather than the album kind of affecting the shows, it was doing the shows that sort of brought about
a new way of looking at the material that we had been slowly working on.
What is this? What did you call it? New way?
Yeah, new way.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the responsibilities that you guys have outside of the band, was it difficult for you guys to make time to play these shows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fucking nightmare. It's funny that you ask.
Let's just say, I don't know, just for
how much can you talk about? Do you want to talk about your situation?
I can't. I don't know, but let's.
We'll just say that I had a lot of familial obligations that it's very hard to take a step away from. Tim had a lot of professional obligations.
Professionally, I mean, as a public school teacher, it's, you have a fair amount of time off, but the time on, it's like being a tax accountant. It's pretty rigid in terms of trying to fit things in a certain way. So, I mean, quite frankly, you have like 40 more minutes of a drive tacked on to rehearsals than I do. We rehearse in Boston, so I truck out from like 80 minutes away, and then for Dan it's God, whatever, like
2 hours,
something like that. But that almost became the easiest thing for me, just like on a work night, weeknight or something. Once my animal chores are wrapped up for the day and the farm secure, if my wife happens to be home at that time, sometimes that's the easiest thing, just to be driving on cruise control to practice and do that. But as far as finding the time and making the travel plans and stuff like that, it's been pretty challenging sometimes.
I've really found that as I've gotten older, staying up late is like the equivalent of just like staying up to midnight is the equivalent of staying up till 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I would get back home at midnight, and usually I literally, like last night we went to bed at 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? So it's like that amount of like physical endurance that was required was a lot. So it requires a lot of effort for us to get all that stuff together, and it's just one of the reasons we can't like always do it, essentially. Yeah.
But also, like, we're lightweights when it came to all that flying for the West Coast days. I mean, it's really, Rich has airport game. Like,
yeah,
I barely ever fly anywhere, but Rich, our drummer, synth player, I mean, he travels for a living constantly, and he just had this system that 8 million life hacks to get from security to your seat. And I don't know, I'm a hayseed that I don't know, I don't know how to handle myself. And
he kept yelling about the giant metal birds in the sky.
Right.
Yeah, it was embarrassing.
I get hats off to you guys, man. Holy shit, dudes. If I had to travel an hour plus to go and practice, I would never do it. I complain, the gym I would go to is like 5 minutes down the road, and I would complain about having to drive to go to the gym sometimes. So holy crap, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's for me, it's motivating knowing that people want to see it, and that it's a lot more motivating working with people than it is just to kind of like, I live 5 minutes from my office. I've come in some nights to work on music by myself, but it's a lot harder to do that when it's just you. It's a lot easier if the band is there kind of expecting you to be there, so. Yeah.
The town I live like 15 minutes away from the school I teach at, but outside of that, it's driving an hour and a half anywhere to see anyone or do anything is just kind of a fact of life, whether it's, I got to go do a thing for my mom or, I don't know. So it's, I don't know, I can make my peace with the driving a little easier, but when it comes to time off and professionally, I'll try not to recapitulate the story of my time off requests at work and what's acceptable and not. But it's been challenging to coordinate all of it, but I think we've acquitted ourselves decently doing that.
Yeah.
We haven't, made big promises on a whole bunch of shit we've had to cancel or I don't know.
Yeah, we did what we said we were going to do, which is pretty impressive, I think, for us anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man. Hats off to you guys. You guys have the new album Sea of Worry coming out in the beginning of November, which I've been able to listen to it, and I want to congratulate you guys on a fantastic album. I'm going to be honest, I was a little nervous going into listening to it for the first time because I've been hyping it up. And when I listened to it for the first time, I was so fucking happy because it exceeded my expectations. And I wanted to ask you guys, was that something that you guys thought about throughout this process, that people are probably going to be excited for this album and are maybe going to expect something specifically with the album, and that some people might be into it, some people might not be?
I don't know. We tried to, in the Kerrang interview, they asked questions about this, and I was just like, I just try not to think about, especially the specter of death consciousness. Like before you called in, Dan and I were talking about the length of Sea of Worry, which, is standard LP length, 45 minutes. Since the invention of the LP has been pretty standard in terms of the amount of music that fits comfortably in sequences well from one side to the other. And Dan said, does it feel short? I was like, well, it's 45 minutes, but compared to releasing a 2-hour even Death Conscious is 85 minutes, but I don't know, something that was an odyssey just to start. There's a bit of a sense that, we know how much that album means to people. And if you do not deliver with the gravity of that, I don't know, I hope to make up with, concision and quality.
Yes, I think we think about it, but we try not to think about it. Because I think you can't, you can never really predict how people are going to react. And I think the whole thing, like whatever it is that we do, it's all predicated on the idea that it's as honest and transparent as possible. And if we are like trying to fit the mold of what we think people expect, it stops being that, right? So then it's just, we're doing Have a Nice Life face. And it's
correct.
Like, yeah. So,
Sea of Worry does exactly what I want it to do.
Which is what exactly?
We were just talking about the A-side, B-side EPs, parallel short stories sort of format to it, the sequencing and the way that the themes work, that, not gonna... Yeah, I don't know that in terms of my conception or my view of the songs that we chose, the songs that we developed, and the way that we sequenced them, it doesn't have any moments of hesitation to me that the narrative plays out is the best as I would have hoped.
Yeah, I think we have to just. This whole time, all we've ever been doing is making music that we liked and doing things that we were interested in. And we've been lucky enough that people have been into that. So we just kind of have to trust that process. And eventually, honestly, part of it is just knowing that, like, at some point, most people are going to get off the train.
Correct.
Right? Like, that's kind of inevitable. Like sooner or later, my car, when you get in my car, it syncs the Bluetooth to the phone or whatever, and that's how I listen to music or whatever. But just because of the system or whatever, however it connects to the phone, it only when you get in the car and you turn on the car, about a minute into the car being started, it will start playing the first song off that U2 album that Apple forcefully downloaded to everyone's phone. And it is hot garbage. It's so bad. I have never gotten more than 45 seconds into this song because I'm like, this sucks. And so the beginning of it, I just keep hearing the first 15 seconds of this song and just wanting to kill myself. And I'm like, sooner or later, this is going to be us. If we don't gracefully bow off the stage, you know what I mean? Well, it'll be some version of this. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll know when
force our way onto Apple.
I mean,
OS.
if I could do that, I would do that. Like, if anyone's interested in that deal, like forcefully downloading our album, I'll do it. But
your new OS opens to Eat the Witch. It's
just every time, and you can't stop it, and you can't delete it, and it's great.
If you try to delete it, you get a virus.
I feel like that's like more of a consumer thing.
Yeah, it is actually.
If you download the consumer album, you can't delete it. Like, there's no way to delete it. I love it. Anyway. No.
I love that. I have never heard that YouTube song, but I know our album, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and I would expect it to be hot garbage.
Oh, it's so bad, dude. I highly recommend that everyone just turn on like the beginning of the first song so you can get what I'm talking about. It's like unlistenable.
Tim, you had mentioned something that I think is interesting, and I think this is one of the things that I love about the new album is I love the sequencing of the songs, and I love that there is sort of this dichotomy with the tracks, that there is tracks that are faster. There's some sign speed. It sounds almost kind of brighter, so to speak. But then there are songs that are grueling. And throughout the process, I'm assuming as you guys are talking about this was something that was intentional and something that you guys planned on and talked about when you were putting the album together.
Yeah, I think, like Dan said before, it's easy to try to do yourself even I think about, a lot of, you were asking about the death metal album covers. I listen to a lot of death metal, and it's easy to just pick, a mixture of sounds for a project and say, I'm going to do that. Or, it's going to be a complete tribute to, my band's going to sound like Candlemass, but it's not going to be Candlemass, but everyone's going to know we're doing the Candlemass thing. That's not death metal, but I don't know. I feel we've always been pretty committed to variety in our albums and not really trying to pigeonhole things in the first place. But even at this point, we could, if you look at Death Consciousness, there are seeds of what Giles Corey became, and there are seeds of what ended up being Weird Noise stuff on the Flowers of St. Francis. We ended up developing some of those ideas elsewhere, leaving, what would be the core of the Have a Nice Life sound that didn't get outsourced to other projects by us. Is that reasonable?
No. I think that's absolutely. I've thought about this a lot of times. Like, if we hadn't split off those as like solo projects or separate projects, and we'd had only Have a Nice Life in which to explore all that stuff, I think Have a Nice Life records would sound a lot different, because we left the new wave influences and the goth influences and the industrial stuff. We left that for Have a Nice Life.
Yeah. And even then, just, from the beginning, always being mindful of, still putting together a sequence that has a rise and a fall, has variety, I don't think with Sea of Worry we're playing, like you said, Science Beat, it's pretty bright. I had walked into the office when we recorded that. I was like, all right, it's Tears for Fears Day. Let's go. This is, that we've always been committed to having there be variety, and the album sequence is not getting samey, even though certain sounds have, shuffled off to other projects and, newer ones coming in. So it's, I strive, we strive to be musical, in not saying that bands that have the monochrome approach to just, a full LP, Insect Warfare or something like that, wall to wall fast grind, that doesn't have merit in its own rights, but are trying to just think more broadly about putting together a musical experience that's not genre specific, but has appropriate peaks and valleys and tonal turns.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because people think of like Death Consciousness as a record, but it isn't. What it was like, those were all the songs we happened to have MP3s of when we lost the original files. So they
weren't all of them. Then there was the Void stuff and other. They were of a set.
Yeah, they were just kind of like, here's what's left over. It was someone forced us to print it now, right? And now it's like when we did A Natural World or, the Steve Worry, it's a much more conscious kind of like design process where Tim's really good at sequencing things and saying like, here's the order that makes the most sense. And, what songs really make sense on the record and which don't, what makes it and what doesn't.
Well, you're a good sequencer too. I was listening to the Giles Corey album the other day. It has the symmetry of the opener and the closer and empty churches in the middle. It's
maybe
I don't know. As a fan of LP sequencing, I don't know if I ever told you I deeply admired the sequencing in that one. But
I appreciate that.
I agree with Tim.
Okay, well, fine. I'll take your compliment, you jerks.
Fuck you.
Yeah, but I think the new ones are probably more representative of the way we try to think about records. Yeah, I think Death Consciousness kind of ends up being like, here's what was in Mom's attic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're also younger.
Yeah. We also, I don't know, didn't have much of an idea of what we were doing then, whereas, now we have a sense of what our capabilities have been, what we've done before, and I don't know how to, where there's room to push into new ground.
Yeah, I want to commend you guys for the sequencing of the album, because there are moments where it's like I want to dance, and then there are moments where like I want to go and cry. It's like it's just such a fucking roller coaster ride, and I love that about the album. When I interviewed Jonathan Tuitt recently from the Flenser, he and I were talking about the album. One of the things that he said to me was that going into this album, you guys didn't want to just create something that was just another album of nothing but doom and gloom. And Dan, you and I kind of talked about this during our last interview. So when you guys were putting this album together, how much thought went into that?
The material that came out, I think it reflects, where we are as people now. I don't know. Nahvalr came out of a very, I don't know if I could in good faith write the Witch Box or something now, or maybe I could. Maybe I'd go to a different place. But I don't know. The material, maybe the emotional whiplash, or you said it was like a roller coaster, but it does just come out of the lived experience of where we are now. Lyrically aside. That the theme of various types of worry, or I feel especially the sequencing of starting with a very global type of worry, everything's on fucking fire, oh my God, to ending with the existential, theological worry of Destinos, that it has that narrowing effect there. But, so it represents different dimensions of the kind, the feelings we would want to exercise now, I guess. As a dad, or, in the classroom, like, even if I want to, I can't just sit down and put my head in my hands and say, I don't know, the way I might have when I was 22 or 23, because then I'd have 25 kids staring at me saying, what's the teacher doing on the ground with his head in his hands saying, I don't know. That, I don't know, having to deal with, being 10 years on further and learning how to cope with the bad feelings that went into things like Death Consciousness and Nahvalr or whatever, that were, it still reflects that we're, anxious people and wanting to see, some sort of better situation for your kids or my students or something like that, and maybe some sort of pushback against the doom and gloom, because I don't know, it's where we have to be in our lives right now.
Yeah, I think that it was funny, like I saw someone, one of my friends who's like a dad friend, right? So he's like a local friend, not from music or whatever, was like, oh, I saw someone talk about your album online, and I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, they said that it was going to be bad because you aren't depressed anymore because you have kids. And we were both just like, well, that's really funny, because that person definitely doesn't have kids. Like, that person does not know what they're talking about. So, for me, it's kind of like, those parts of our personality are like always there. And that's a big part of the way that, like, I view music as like, that's a chance to get that stuff out and express that stuff in a way that you don't get to day-to-day life, because you just have to go to work or you have to do whatever. But also part of it for me is like just becoming more aware as I get older of like how music in particular can be so expressive, and seeing how online cultures and online subcultures have weaponized a lot of essentially what is like white young man, young male angst. And for me, kind of seeing what would essentially have been my cohort, but now it's a generation below me, and seeing what happens.
So a bizarro version of it happen in, bizarro version of our lives.
Yeah, like instead of finding an outlet for it and needing to do something productive with it because that was all that was available. So like whether that was starting to go to shows or getting involved in bands or like whatever the hell it was, instead kind of seeing people that honestly just remind me of me, instead going into this fucking endless echo chamber,
meme spiral.
Yeah, of getting worse and worse, and seeing the total lack of, maybe understandable lack of like sympathy for that group, and seeing, essentially kids that I'm like, you look like a kid I hung out with, watching that kid shoot up a school or shoot up a movie theater. It honestly just makes me way more aware of the effect the things that I put out into the world have, because, I can put out a record and be like, this is a representative of me at a certain time. It's me expressing a certain emotion, but without context, that is all anybody knows of that. They don't get to see like me moving on from that and me doing something constructive with it. They just see it in the moment, and
I don't know, it changes your perspective on things.
No, I mean, I just think it, for me, it's like just this weird understanding that like, it has a life outside of you. And so I'm a little more, I don't want to say I'm careful about what I do, but I put a lot more effort into thinking about, let's put
You're
it
being
this way.
watched. There's audience now. At the beginning,
it's not even that.
We didn't have a sense of audience.
Yeah, I guess it's much more like, what am I really trying to say? Like, I wouldn't put out a song where I'm just like, I'm gonna kill myself like 5 times in a row. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm like, I'm trying to express something, but if I leave it at that, it's just not enough. Like, I have to be better about expressing what I'm actually trying to express. And so if anything, it makes it more difficult, but I just think it's incumbent. I mean, it's just important to me that whatever our legacy is, it isn't just fucking jerk off to your own sadness. There's got to be something else to that. And I'm not always sure what it is, but I think it's important to me that there be something else there. So I don't know. Yeah, I think about that a lot. But
man, I have to tell you, I wanted to speak to you guys about memes because I see Have a Nice Life memes quite regularly, and I listened to a podcast that Tom Wesluck and Kyle Bates did where they talked about this. And so I wanted to ask you, for you guys, when you're seeing memes made about your band, what is that like for you guys? What goes through your head? I'm sure to some degree it's flattering, but I have to assume that it's also kind of fucking weird as well.
Well, I feel for Dan because I feel meme culture, I mean, there's still a portion of the audience that might not think I exist or doesn't, I'm not the face of it in as much, I guess, but the stuff that's directly pasting your face from, business stills or things like that I've talked about this with my students, actually. It's like, look, I don't know, sometimes memes are made of stock photographs where people agreed to be in the thing, I guess. Or like, I don't know, those are people that now become not people in the eyes of millions of people, regardless of, continental internet connection or something like that, because it's, I don't, from when I see them, especially when they're Dan-centric, it does bum me out that there's, like I know you're a person and you're a human and da-da-da-da-da, but that there's, I don't know, it removes some sort of personhood there, even if it's supposed to be flattering or, some form of hero worship, or like we hope they really like our joke by pasting Dan's face on the drive-through, like the Shaquille O'Neal drive-through window thing or something like that. Mm-hmm. That it's like, that's a lot of times to fucking see yourself photoshopped and recontextualize or something like that. So I don't know, I can't have feelings on your behalf, but that's probably the most supremely weird part of it to me. It's actually not even the, typing arrowheads a bazillion times or something like that, but the fact that your visage, I don't know, it's like some weird reverse Julius Caesar's face on coinage that, would have been used to unite the empire instead of used through memedom to, I don't know what the end game is with.
I mean, I don't think memes are going to be a particularly long-lived medium. I think
hot take.
Yeah, I don't.
Hot take. You don't. So Gilgamesh flood, the fucking cross, the smiley face. This is the heat death of memes right now.
We're nearing peak meme.
Okay. And, so after 5,000 years of.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, okay. Again, internet memes or
internet memes.
Okay.
Internet
or
memes. Not memes like
viruses.
Thought viruses.
Sorry, that's the way I use it in school with kids, because I try to broaden their understanding of what's happening with.
So even the word meme is a meme.
Yeah, right.
So I think, first of all, I think so it's like, I have some of the same misgivings that you do, but I also think they're funny. So.
They can be.
Yeah.
They can be.
So, but then it's like, here's the other thing that I honestly never really thought about this. But I went on, there's like a Have a Nice Life subreddit now. Mm-hmm. And I went on there. I was like, I try not to go on there because I sort of feel like I'm like peering in someone's bedroom. Like it feels
dad walking in on the sleep.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, it's not for me, whatever. But I got asked to go look at something. So I went and go look at something. And then I saw a different thread that was like, how did you hear about Have a Nice Life? And like, the majority of the people in the thread were memes. Like, it was a meme reference, and I went to go look it up.
Yeah.
So to me, it really is just like
free press.
I think it's the equivalent of like passing live recording bootlegs around, like the Grateful Dead or something. It's an underground,
completely divorced from the actual art there.
In the sense of like, it's a thing that like someone can have or pass along that just lets you know that there's this thing out there. Yeah. So to me, I'm interested in it from the outside, but I also think for me, it was one of the first times where I was like, okay, cool. This is for young people. It's not really my world anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But, so I try not to judge it. It's weird to see my face, but I'm also just, I think I'm less weirded out about it because for work, I'm in front of people all the time.
You have a brand, so that's a part of. Professionally, I have to have a brand too, but then also it's like, okay, now I go home. Or did I tell you about the time I flipped out because kids were filming me climbing a very high ladder fixing theater lights?
No.
There was like a 15-minute, like, I don't know. I was up there trying to fix the auditorium lights on this dangerously high ladder. I don't think my pants were falling down or anything, but, and there's like a musical rehearsal going on for Guys and Dolls or something like that. And, then I learned the next day that like on YouTube or like, I don't know, just virally kids were passing around 15 minutes of footage of me fixing a light. And I was like, look, I know I'm a Googleable entity, or you could type my name into your phone and find like the cemetery press photos we did in 2006 of me flipping off God or something like that. But I willingly put that stuff out there. I did not willingly let you film me fix a fucking light for 15 minutes. That's just, I don't know.
The fact that you are a teacher, have you had students talk to you about Have a Nice Life?
Yep. I get the puns pretty regularly on Fridays when I say have a good weekend, and those who know say have a nice life, and I slap my knee and say, aha.
That's a band I'm in.
I do have a student right now who does actually, he says he feels morally obligated to show me updates in the meme verse when there is a Have a Nice Life meme that he feels I need to see to monitor or something. He's very protective of
That's nice.
me, I guess, which is good. I mean, I might have shared the story on another pod, or maybe one of the LeGrand podcasts we just did, but the district I currently teach in, within the first few days or like a week of me coming into that district, I got approached. Two kids came into my room after school. They're like, "Are you the guy?" I said, "What do you mean the guy?" And like, "The guy from Have a Nice Life. Are you Tim Macuga from Have a Nice Life?" And that was supremely strange to realize that my reputation had followed me into my job from the internet, essentially. But yeah, those kids are since graduated. I'm in touch with them, and we played Dill's Basement that one time, and I don't know that it's led to some cool interactions. Especially kids that are deeply into art or would want to. They have a want to respect that and understand or maybe get some insight, but not, approach you like you're George Clinton at the airport or something, just for a picture. But it's, I don't know, I'd say at least most kids, it's still September right now. If they hadn't figured out I'm Googleable or something like that, they do by January or February or something like that. And then they choose to listen to it or not, or they say this is weird or this sounds like my dad's music or something like that. I don't, and then they shuffle off of it. But yeah, it's there, it's present, at least in terms of me student interactions. Then for my colleagues, it's a weird other thing that I do. That
I've had a couple people reach out recently where they were like, "Hey, I really like your band," like on Instagram, and I'd be like, "Thanks a lot," and they'd be like, "Wow, I never thought you would answer back. My dad used to play me your music when I was a little kid."
Oh yeah, you told me that one.
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing, and I'm like, okay, cool, like.
We're the Eagles.
I'm dying. I'm dying right now.
We're the Fleetwood Mac of this kid's life.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So that's cool.
Shit, Tim. I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to ask. So do your colleagues have an idea that you are in Have a Nice Life or understand like the band that you're in, or do they just know that you're in a band?
They know, they've looked it up. It's not their... like one or two of them will be like, "Oh, like The Cure and Depeche Mode," or okay, like I understand what's going on, but by and large, it's either a noisier, "Oh, I checked it out, not really my thing, but cool that you're self-actualizing that way, or you have something else, outside of the job and animals, or I don't know, things like that." So yeah, that they generally know. There's a special ed aide in our school too who plays drums in a touring hardcore band, so we talk shop at the lunch table sometimes, and it gets a little weird for others that don't understand why we're complaining about sound check issues or something like that. Yeah, it's not a weird, like, I don't know, I don't teach in a Bible Belt school or something like that where it's seen as this really suspect thing, but I don't know, it might as well be like, the art teacher I work with who does a newspaper strip cartoon, he has an artistic life outside of a building, and people either check out the cartoon, the comic strip, or not, but, they just know that that's something I do, and, sometimes that's what I'm doing on weekends or in the evenings, or, in the case of Roadburn, that I had to ask for time off to fly to go there, and the personal time request form, even though I was very transparent about going to do that, it's highly frowned upon. That's a reason you take off time. So yeah, it's another part of who I am there. It's not a weird thing unless And I don't know, I feel I've handled it with kids too when they think the pun is going to be hugely hilarious, or they think I'm going to be weirded out by like, I found out about you. I know that. I'm like, yep.
Cool.
Your English teacher's on the internet.
I want to go back to the band and the album, because the album has you guys bringing in some additional members for some of the songs, which I think is really cool. For the new album, you guys have Mike Cameron, Rich Otero, and Joe Streeter, who's also in Consumer with you, Tim, and they play live with you guys. So how did you guys wind up bringing them into the fold? You had mentioned that you were performing live. That kind of brought on the album. And did you guys feel that it was right to bring them into the fold with the songs that you guys were planning to put into the new album?
Well, so I mean, going back to Strange Day Fest, Mike was we had talked briefly about how we wanted to set it up. There was, before 2017, 2010, we had played with Dan's brother Will on keys and our current visual guy, Cody, on guitar at that point. But that was a scattered group and just in different, places, that would have been tough to get together. But Mike Cameron, I'm really old friends with him. Actually, he was around for the genesis of Have a Nice Life at UMass Amherst. His hardcore band, Pretty Faces, they set up a lot of shows on campus around in the area. We'd always get on to do these quick 15-minute guerrilla sets. He was my roommate my senior year. He still plays in tons of bands outside of us. So I contacted him first because I knew that, he knew people he might be interested in participating due to, his history with me and then us, and us remaining in touch for a long time. But he and Rich and Joe, they have another project called Other People as a trio. Power trio there, but at the time, Mike had put me in contact with Rich, and then Ian Gustafson, who played 2017 with us, and he recently played Great Scott in Boston with us too, as we played as a 6-piece. So that was the original formation. Then Ian found out he was going to be a father and wanted to pare back his musical commitments in his life. And Joe had started playing with Consumer, so we brought him into the fold as, second guitar and filling in on keyboard stuff where we could. So that's, in terms of the genesis of the live band, it came from me knowing Mike for a very long time, and Dan and I, just as Have a Nice Life, that as long as there have been Have a Nice Life live, at least there was a Mike Cameron as this promoter type figure or enabler, I guess. I don't.
And all of them are just really, really accomplished musicians in their own right. So it's like, for us, we were like, why don't we get people that are better than us? Yeah, good already. And then it was really funny to me, like doing the live performances or like learning these songs, and they'd be like, okay, so like how many times do you do the verse? And it'd be like 37 and a half times. It's like, it doesn't make any sense in person. Like, we're like, on the recording it sounded cool, but it's
but now we have to explain this, or we have to be able to count out the counts.
Yeah, none of the counts made any sense. Like, it's just like, because when we're recording, we're like record it once and then you just like drag it like 40 times, In person, it's just like, I have to play the same thing 40 times. You're like, yeah, it's 40 times exactly. And then it changes to something completely different.
How do we play the Big Gloom? Everyone gets a bass guitar. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really wild to like watch that. Like Tim is the one with like the real like
memory.
Music. Yeah, well, memory, music theory background. Like, I don't know anything about music at all, so it's like I'm just like,
I tried for a while. You gave me that textbook like that, and that's a hard textbook too. It's when you're cleaning out your old house, you're like, you want this? And I took it. I was like, yeah, this is kind of upper level stuff in here that Dan just said. I'm learning music theory this week. And
I didn't do it. I didn't successfully do it. Right, so well, I still don't know like what key is what, and so it was really enjoyable to me to like watch all that stuff come together and watch real quote unquote real musicians be like, all right, this is the way it is. All right, it's the way it is. Like, let's do it. Like it just was real enjoyable.
That's really cool. So the Lord of Tressorhorn single was released not too long ago, and then fairly soon after that, people started posting the Magic the Gathering card. Is that where you guys got the name for the track?
Oh, yeah. Yes. That would have been the grandest coincidence.
So are you guys into Magic the Gathering?
Well, I mean, the date of that card speaks for, I mean, has it been reprinted or
Probably.
I don't know. I mean, the working title for that song was Cropsley 2, because I said, hey, it's kind of Cropsy-ish with the 60-note bass guitar pattern. And, so every time we're finishing a recording session, it's like, what are we going to call this one? And Cropsley 2.
Season of the Witch.
Yeah, and then it had to have, what, Season of the Witch is Halloween 3, right?
Is that? I think so.
Yeah. Season of the Witch is Halloween 3, but then that's also a Magic card, and that, so that proof of that original
Season of the Witch is a Magic card?
Yeah, the dark.
Oh, I didn't know.
I forget what it does. If I was
cool.
If I was that committed to the game, I'd know what the card does, but it sounds really cool.
Both of us played Magic the Gathering when we were younger, and we every now and then, like a couple times ago when I was over your house, we just pulled out a bunch of random cards and we'll play. So we enjoyed.
You made me quit.
I made you.
Yeah, our artifact affinity I turned my back on the game forever.
Oh, okay.
You were like, hey, I made this. The game is officially broken, and this is impossible to beat. I was like, I don't want to do this. I might not want to be friends with you anymore.
Mike's girlfriend,
Kelsey, yes,
is actually sort of like a professional.
She's accomplished.
Yeah, like competitive Magic
player. Yes,
it's a serious thing, man. It's a big deal, that game.
Yeah, she beat my ass into the ground.
I'm sure she did.
So I mean, the cards I have left at they're 19 or a card like Lord of Tressorhorn is like the latest that I would have, because I just. Anything. I just stopped wanting to keep up with the planned obsolescence nonsense. But I was like, hey, Kelsey, I'll play against you with my, hokey old cards. And the state of the art today, it's a scientific playtest wonder that it is now. So as far as players, I don't know if it becomes a thing with the, I don't know, for to skip a turn.
The original name of Earth Mover was 1010 Trample. Right? Or is that something else?
No, that was a like 15-minute long suite we did in the dying days of acoustic duo. That was the one that ended with Patience by Guns N' Roses.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So so that was also meant. So we have a long history of Magic the Gathering references.
Correct. Yeah. So, but for this one, it was Cropsley 2 Season of the Witch, but I think I texted you. I said, well, we can keep the Magic tag because holy fucking shit, 40,000 or, the touchstones that we've trafficked in over the years. But I said, I've been thinking about the lyrics and just the general themes and the, I'm a person with responsibilities and it's heavy. And I want to feel that I have some sort of power in the face of all these responsibilities as a grown man now. And I just thought of Lord of Tressorhorn. Like, it's a pain in the ass to get out on the field. Then once it's there, you feel it. It could have been a useful venture all the while,
right?
But, except we don't get to regenerate, but he does.
No, he does. Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Hell yeah. When I saw it, I was like, I've never played Magic the Gathering, but I can appreciate it, and I think that's fucking awesome that you named a song after a Magic the Gathering card.
There's a lot of nerd ass references in our stuff, but it's just what we like. It's just what we like, man.
Hell yeah.
I talked about the Super Nintendo game Earthbound, bar none, more than I hope anyone ever has in Decibel Magazine. I really hope so.
Yeah.
Well, shit, guys. So what sort of stuff have you been listening to lately?
On the way down here, I listened to Bell Witch's Longing. I just got a demo from a student, actually, that I'm listening to on the way back. It's like straight pop music. She's got, I think she self-records, but has, I don't know, that's what I've yet to listen to, but that doesn't really answer the question.
I mean, strangely, like the way I listen to music now is so different because I'm either at work and listening to music for focus. So it's like I'll listen to a lot of like retro wave kind of synthy stuff with no lyrics because that's kind of what helps me work. And then I'll go to the gym and I'm like, I just want to listen to like Bane and Incendiary and like stuff like that and just really be like, yes, like, all right, like this is, just get me pumped up or whatever. And it's weird. It's like, and then it's like, if you look at like my Spotify, like top artist, it's like Baby Shark and like Paw Patrol and like shit like that my kids listen to. So it's such a weird mashup that it's almost like I've forgotten what like actual music sounds like. You know what I mean? Like what it's like to just listen to music without a deliberate purpose involved. So I don't know. I'm not a good person to ask. I've been meaning to I keep wanting to do a podcast where it's like Dan admits he hasn't heard any album because I'm just like,
well, it's like that Tig Notaro show where it's like Tig doesn't, it's like they put a celebrity in front of her. She's like, yeah, I don't know who that most famous person ever is.
Yeah,
who the hell are you?
Like the other day, I was talking to someone, my friend Val, who has David Bowie tattoos, and I was like, I don't think I've heard more than 2 David Bowie songs in my entire life. Like, I don't think I've heard a David Bowie song from front to back, like ever. And I just don't have a musical education. So I'm just like, I should just record reaction videos where it's like, Dan Barrett listens to this. And every single one would be like, all right, it's pretty good. All right, cool.
I have the complete opposite. I just tell myself I'm going to do a thing or an artist's discography, and not even like the Tom Wasilewski's going to listen to the discography and rank it, but just over and over ad nauseum, because I think the universe's secrets are going to be revealed to me at the end of it if I listen to enough time. But I don't know, earlier this year, I said I need to do Elvis. All of it, like the shitty 60s movie soundtracks and Fat and Dying and actually already dead. I think he was kind of dead for a couple of years while still recording and actually performing, but it's some other lonely ghost that's up there. So I don't know, that took a couple months to really work through and collect my thoughts on and feelings. And that could be another,
okay, I think
that's another conversation for another time, but I'm not in as intensive a zone right now. But in school, in class, I play a lot of music too. That I listen to a lot of jazz music pretty intently. Intensely, I don't know the word I was looking for, but lately I've been spending a lot of Walt Dickerson, who was a pretty. I don't know. He wasn't the most obscure player in the world. He got some of his fame playing with Sun Ra, I guess. But I don't know. A sequence of his albums that I've been playing in class, while kids do work, and to them, it's just, it barely registers. It's, is this elevator music or is this what old people do all day? That kind of thing. But for me, he sounds like he wants to disappear. He would, play really choked up on his mallets and these very quick, nervous runs. So I don't know. It's like, well, I'm letting students do their thing. I'm having my analytical moment. Well, it's, paying no mind to them is just this background music. So that's, I don't know, at least in my waking hours in school, I've probably listened to the first four Walt Dickerson albums 20 times this week or something like that.
We should do because this is this has been true of our relationship for a long time, where it's you've heard and seen everything and I haven't heard or seen anything. So
that's not true. I'm horribly up to date on just the now. I don't know. To me, I'm Carpenter Brute is new and cool. I don't know. I feel that what I'm just finding these, it's already yesterday's news.
Well, I think we should do a thing where it's like Professor Tim's syllabus, and you're this week we're doing whatever it is, some theme, and you put together the syllabus and you record your thoughts on it or something, and then we'll record other people's reactions to it. So it's we'll play it side by side where Tim will be this guy's playing really choked up. Honestly, sounds like he wants to disappear. And it'll cut to someone's reaction video and be this guy plays the drums and it's drummy. It's real drummy. I think that would be great. We should do that.
The bass player's taking a solo. what the fuck? Who does that?
I also have never listened to Bowie. I couldn't tell you. I think he did that one song that Vanilla Ice kind of ripped, right? Maybe?
Under Pressure.
Yeah, right?
That's the song I've heard. So I'm a one-up on you.
Yeah. So yeah, you do have a one-up on me there.
Just explore David Bowie's discography. Because like, everyone says this is the best. So we gotta check it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same boat.
Guilt over shit like that, where I'm like, I'm not appreciating the best like the culture has to offer. But
I'm the same with Prince. Never listened to Prince.
Prince's,
which I feel like I probably should. We probably should check them out if we haven't.
I think it's the same guy, right? Same guy. Right?
People are probably like, what the fuck?
In Princess, I don't know if Elvis is gonna like last as long as like I did that. I'm gonna do Prince. I don't like shortly after Death Consciousness or maybe it was actually before we started that. I don't know. I forget. But I've always had that just maniacal. I'm going to eat the whole thing. We were talking about binge eating earlier, but it's not even, for me, it's not a passive, it gets in the way sometimes, at least, in terms of the amount of focus I want to put into this crazy amount of music I want to do close listening to on a daily basis. But I don't know. I mean, I can, my chores at home, I go through a lot of pairs of headphones at least because they get chewed on by goats or things like that.
I mean, that's a universal problem that people all over the world have.
So shit, guys, Sea of Worry comes out on November 8th. So other than that, do you guys have anything else planned for Have a Nice Life coming up in the next few months, next few weeks?
I don't think so.
We do not have things planned for Have a Nice Life.
In the next few weeks.
Strange pause.
Yeah. No, we're working on stuff, but we don't have anything immediately planned. I think we might be open to doing stuff for when the record comes out, but for right now, it was kind of like, we toured. We just want the record to come out, people to hear it, and kind of let that sit out there for a while, and then it'll be time to, Tim's the consumer album is coming out. When is that album coming out?
Same week.
The same week. Oh yeah, the same week as Have a Nice Life. So they'll be doing that stuff. I'm going to be working on either Black Wing stuff or Giles Corey stuff. So it's like and then the whole cycle will start over again. We'll start working on Have a Nice Life stuff, and it'll just kind of keep repeating itself. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens with the record. And
I mean, first thing, the pot of demos and recorded material that I don't know. We have stuff that's could be returned to as thought experiments, or even to decide. It's like, well, we did. That's some stuff we started putting together a year and a half ago or something like that. And maybe that's a little too old, or it doesn't sound like whatever feels relevant right now. But there's always something we can pick up on.
I want to work on a Nahvalr record.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
All right.
You guys should do it. Hell yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, it's funny, we started there. I was like, I don't know. I couldn't write a witch box where I am right now. But
I think you totally could. It would just be called like the Goat Pen or something. You know what I mean?
The Goat Pen.
I think it would be
goat separation.
I think we would make it different. It would still be some kind of like. I think that project kind of needs like some sort of weird rule. Like we get like one of those old like random encounter tables from like Dungeons and Dragons, and it's like this song has to have like, and you like roll it, and it's like it needs to have like 5 choruses, and you know what I mean? Like that would be cool. Or would it? I don't know. Yeah, but we're still working on stuff for sure. But yeah, nothing planned right now.
Well, gentlemen, I want to commend you on a fantastic album. It's one of, if not my favorite albums this year. I was telling Jonathan in this when he and I spoke. It very well might be my favorite album for this year. It's absolutely fantastic, and I think you guys hit a goddamn home run with this album. So yeah, I want to commend you guys on that.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yo, props to Tim and Dan. The fact that those two are traveling an hour, 2 hours to be able to practice, shit, man. Hats off to them, because I fucking complain if I have to drive like 15 minutes somewhere, 20 minutes somewhere. These fucking guys are traveling an hour, 2 hours plus to go and practice in Boston. That's pretty impressive, man. Especially to do that during the work week. Oh my God, dude. When I get home from work, first thing I do is get right into my pajamas and I don't want to fucking leave. So the fact that they're doing that during the work week, yeah, man, props to those guys. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, hearing them talk about memes and meme culture for them talking about people fucking weaponizing their music, that was something that I didn't necessarily anticipate going into this interview. And that's something that, as an artist and a musician, has to be fucking weird, right? And I imagine that if you're Dan or you're Tim and you see fucking white dudes using your art, your music to weaponize whatever shitty fucking belief they have, that's gotta be very weird, very uncomfortable, and not cool. Hearing Tim tell the story about slaughtering that duck in a bathtub, shit. I stand by what I said. I feel like if you're going to fucking eat meat, you should take part in that process of killing an animal. So I am totally in favor of people that hunt their own meat, because I think that's so much more of a humane way to kill an animal than through a factory farm type of situation. So I feel like if I were going to eat meat again, that's how I would have to do it, right? I'd have to like hunt or slaughter my own fucking animals or something. But shit, man, thinking about chopping off a chicken's head or a duck's head, that's fucking rough, man. And yeah, goats are the best. That's one of my favorite things that I get to do when I go to my wife's aunt and uncle's house and get to hang out with their animals on their farm. I love hanging out with the baby goats. They're so fucking cute. I'll make sure to add links in the show notes to how you guys could check out Have a Nice Life, how you could cop some of their merch through the Flenser. I'll make sure to add links as well to Enemy List Home Recording, which is Dan's label. So you guys know the drill. Make sure to fucking go and listen to Have a Nice Life and cop whatever merch of theirs that you can. When the album drops, make sure to stream that shit. I can't wait for all of you guys to hear it and to enjoy it, because I've been able to enjoy it for several months now and it's so fucking good. And then if you haven't, subscribe to the show, rate the show on iTunes, help other people find this podcast. So if you can, rate the show, subscribe. That's always super appreciated when you guys do that. So you know the drill. Get out there, create something cool. I will see you all next time.